The United States owes $36 trillion. China owes $15 trillion. Japan owes $10 trillion. Germany, the UK, France, every major nation on Earth is drowning in red ink. When you add it all up, the total global debt is $317 trillion. That number is impossible to comprehend. It is 330% of global GDP. That means if every human on Earth worked for 3 years with zero consumption, no food, no energy, no housing, we still couldn't pay it off. But here is the question nobody asks. If everyone is in debt, who is the creditor? Debt is a zero-sum game. For every borrower, there must be a lender. If the world owes $317 trillion, that means someone owns $317 trillion in assets. Who holds the claim on the entire planet? The answer reveals the largest wealth concentration mechanism in human history. It isn't conquest. It isn't theft. It is a system where the many borrow, the few lend, and interest compounds forever. We are about to identify the creditor class, the specific institutions and families who sit on the other side of that $317 trillion ledger. This is the economics they don't teach in school. In fact, the algorithm actively suppresses this topic because it exposes the engine of the system. We are racing to hit 1,000 subscribers to break the shadow ban barrier. If you want to know who really owns the world, you need to help us boost this signal. Subscribe now. Join the resistance. Before we name the creditors, you need to understand what debt actually is in the modern system. Most people think debt works like borrowing a cup of sugar. You borrow $10,000 from a bank. You assume the bank had $10,000 in a vault and moved it to your account. This is false. That is not how modern banking works. When a government, or you, borrows money, the money does not exist before the borrowing. The act of borrowing creates the money. Let's look at the mechanism. The US government needs $1 trillion. It prints pieces of paper called treasury bonds. The Federal Reserve and commercial banks buy these bonds. Where do they get the money? Nowhere. The Federal Reserve simply types numbers into a computer. Click. $500 billion created. The commercial banks do the same thing through fractional reserve banking. Click. Another $500 billion created. The Federal Reserve's balance sheet expands. The government's account expands. The money exists now only because the debt was issued. This is the magic trick. The creditor class doesn't lend you money they earned. They have the exclusive legal privilege to create money from nothing and then charge you interest on it. Here is the critical part that 99% of people, including most economists, miss. When the US government borrows that $1 trillion, the banking system creates exactly $1 trillion in currency. But the government doesn't just owe the principal back. It owes the principal plus interest. If the interest rate is 5%, the government owes $1 trillion plus $50 billion. But remember, the system only created the $1 trillion. Where does the $50 billion for the interest come from? It doesn't exist. It was never created. This creates a mathematical trap. Total debt always exceeds total money supply. There is literally not enough money in existence to pay off the debt. So how do we pay the interest? We have to borrow more. We have to issue new debt to create the money to pay the interest on the old debt. This is why the debt grows exponentially. It is not because politicians are spending too much, though they are. It is because the system requires perpetual growth just to prevent immediate collapse. This is not a bug. This is the design. It ensures that you remain on the hamster wheel forever. This simple math is what they don't want you to see. It proves the system is designed to fail. We need to push this truth past the algorithm's filter. If you understand the trap now, subscribe. Help us wake up the rest of the class. Now, let's identify the 4 categories of people who sit at the top of this pyramid and collect the interest. Category number 1, central banks. The Federal Reserve holds $5 trillion in U.S. debt. The Bank of Japan holds $5 trillion. The ECB holds $5 trillion. Globally, central banks hold about $25 trillion of the total debt. But here's the magic trick. Who owns the central banks? The public believes the Federal Reserve is part of the government. It is not. The Fed is a private institution owned by its member banks. Who gets the 6% annual dividend paid on Fed shares? JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, Wells Fargo. When you pay taxes, that money goes to the government. The government uses it to pay interest on bonds. Who holds the bonds? The Fed. Who profits from the Fed? Private banks. It's a perfect loop of wealth extraction. This isn't new. The Bank of England was created in 1694 as a private company to lend money to the king for war in exchange for the monopoly on printing money. The Fed was created in 1913 on the exact same model. Central banks exist to allow private bankers to profit perpetually from public debt. Breaking central banks are the money printers. This next group is the money managers. This is the heavyweight division of the creditor class. Category number 2, institutional investors. This group holds approximately $120 trillion in global debt. This includes pension funds, $50 trillion, insurance companies like MetLife and Prudential, $35 trillion, and mutual funds like BlackRock and Vanguard, $25 trillion. Now, the standard economic defense is, but wait, I have a pension. I have a 401k. That means I am the creditor. Theoretically, yes. But let's look at the reality of ownership. While millions of workers have small claims in these funds, the actual ownership of financial assets is massively concentrated. In the United States, the top 10% of households own 89% of all corporate stocks and mutual fund shares. The bottom 50% of humanity holds almost zero financial assets. They hold only liabilities, debt. So, while pension funds hold the debt on paper, the economic benefit flows disproportionately to the wealthy shareholders and the management class, who skim fees off the top of that $120 trillion pile. Category number 3, foreign governments. This group holds roughly $30 trillion. China holds $3.2 trillion in foreign reserves. Japan holds $1.1 trillion in U.S. treasuries. Why? Because of the trade trap. When China exports $500 billion of goods to America, they receive dollars. They turn around and lend those dollars back to the U.S. government by buying treasury bonds to earn interest. It creates a cycle where American consumers get cheap goods, but the American nation becomes a debtor to the Chinese Communist Party elite who control those bonds. So we have central banks, private cartels, institutions owned by the top 10%, and foreign rivals. But there is one final group, the apex predators, the individuals who own the debt directly and live off the interest of the world. This breakdown of ownership is what the financial media glosses over. They want you to think the system benefits everyone equally. It doesn't. We are fighting the shadow ban to get these facts out. Subscribe now to help us push this data past the censors. Finally, we arrive at the top of the pyramid. Category number 4, wealthy individuals and family offices. The top 1% of the global population holds approximately $40 trillion in financial assets. But the real concentration is in the top 0.01%, roughly 500,000 families worldwide, who hold $10 trillion directly. We are talking about the modern dynasties, the Waltons, the Kochs, the Saudi royals, and yes, the historic banking families like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers. When a family reaches a certain level of wealth, say $10 billion, they stop trying to build businesses. They switch to wealth preservation. They buy government bonds. They buy municipal debt. They become the creditors. Think about the math. If a family holds $10 billion in bonds, paying 5% interest, they receive $500 million a year in income. They don't work. They don't produce products. They don't manage employees. They simply collect $500 million annually from the tax revenue paid by you, the workers, and the companies of the world. This is the definition of a rentier class. They charge rent on the money supply itself. This model was perfected by the Rothschild family in the 1800s. Nathan Rothschild famously financed the British government during the Napoleonic Wars. By 1850, his family held more government debt than any entity in history. He understood the game. The man who controls the money supply controls the empire. Today, the mechanism is the same, just hidden behind complex trusts and family offices. The $15 trillion in annual interest payments generated by the global debt doesn't evaporate. It flows upward. It is a massive vacuum cleaner sucking wealth from the working class, debtors, and depositing it into the accounts of the leisure class, creditors. This is the uncomfortable truth about inequality. It's not just about hard work. It's about who holds the debt and who pays it. The algorithm is programmed to protect the status quo. We are racing to hit 1,000 subscribers to break the shadow ban and keep exposing the engine of the system. Subscribe right now. Don't let them hide the names. So where does this end? The system has a mathematical expiration date. Global debt is 330% of GDP. It is growing at 7% per year, while the economy only grows at 3%. By 2035, debt could hit 400% of GDP. At that point, the interest payments alone would consume nearly half of everything the world produces. That is unsustainable. Something has to break. There are only 3 doors out of this trap. Door number 1, default. Governments admit they can't pay. They burn the bondholders. The financial system collapses instantly. The elites lose their power. They will never choose this door. Door number 2, debt jubilee, a biblical reset. All debts are forgiven. The slate is wiped clean. This would save the poor, but destroy the wealth of the creditor class. They will never allow this door to be opened. Door number 3, inflation. This is the door they have chosen. Governments will print money to pay the debt. They will devalue the currency so that the $36 trillion they owe is technically paid back, but in dollars that are worth pennies. This is the ultimate trick. Inflation is a hidden tax. It transfers wealth from the saver, you, to the debtor, the state. The creditor class knows this is coming. That is why the billionaires we discussed aren't just holding bonds anymore. They are buying farmland, gold, real estate, and infrastructure. They are trading their paper claims for hard assets before the fire starts. The $317 trillion question isn't just, who do we owe? It is, what happens when they decide to collect? The answer is, they won't collect cash. They will collect the real world, while you are left holding the devalued paper. This is the end game the algorithm tries to hide. They want you saving in cash while they buy the assets. We are racing to hit 1,000 subscribers to break the shadow ban and keep this channel alive as a beacon of truth. The system depends on your ignorance. Your subscription is your resistance. Hit the button, signal the system, prepare for the transfer. Class dismissed.